4. All right. Okay, Boker Tov, everybody. Sorry for the technical delay here. I did something on the computer it wasn't meant to be. The Ili Nishmat, Avigdor Chai Avram, Ben, Rachel, Leah, Meir Tzvi. We are on page in this book, page 146. You're using the same one I have. It's page 124. We're on the paragraph that starts with the words Af mafsidei hamidah hazot, the things that get in our way of achieving a form of anava, or humility. As is his derech, every time he gives us how to do something, he also teaches us what to be careful from, that we don't get caught in something that will prevent us from achieving that. We will, Bezrat Hashem, finish this chapter and get into the second to the last chapter. What's the fancy word for that? Penultimate, right? It's used as people think it means the best. It doesn't mean that. Penultimate, we're in the anti-penultimate chapter, the chapter before the end. And we'll hopefully finish this and then move into the next chapter of Yirat Achet, which is I think, a misunderstood topic. So as we said, we're talking about the topic of humility. He talked about what we have to keep in mind, both in terms of our actions, in terms of our thought processes, and now what gets in our way. Again, the way I have mentioned multiple times over these years or time, when we talk about the things that get in our way, is imagine a recovering alcoholic taking a job as a bartender. That would probably not work out very well. So the same thing is true when it comes to, excuse me, all of these different character traits that he's been discussing over the course of the book, that there's certain things you want to do and certain things you want to not do and stay away from. What gets in our way of trying to become an anav? Being immersed in this world. What does that mean? This is where we live. What else are you going to do? What, are you going to live on the moon? But it means that olam hazeh and the materialistic world is your focus in life. It can't be. Can't be. There's nothing wrong. It's used as a dirty word, gashmius, right? Olam gashmi, the physical world. We're here, but we have to remember it's there to serve us. We're not there to serve it. I remember a discussion had a discussion in high school a few weeks ago about modern day avodah zarah. This is well before smartphones and computers and all. And what was avodah zarah? So we talked about the idea of things that are gashmi, things that are physical, that we are like stuck to them, that we just can't get away from. We have to do this, and we have to do that, and we need this, and whether it was the TV in its time or whatever it might be for people's different things that they may get. I don't mean hooked on in terms of hitmakrut or addiction. I'm just talking about things that people get stuck on, and that's like becomes their focus in life. A person who will stay up till 3 a.m. to watch a football game that's going on in the States, which is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But then we'll decide that, you know what, it's 8 o'clock and maybe I'll just daven marv at home. You know, like, where are the priorities? That's where I'm getting at. There's nothing wrong with watching sports. There's nothing wrong with it, as long as it's not the focus of a person's life, for many reasons. Okay, so huh?
In terms of where your mind is, you mean like that to be here and not
correct. That's like, it sounds almost something like mindfulness. Yes, it's where you are present physically. And there was a great commercial. I've mentioned it before you started the class. I'm sure this was before you started joining. And I thought about it yesterday. I was crossing through the park and I thought there was a commercial I had seen that it wasn't a commercial. It was something like a commercial that someone posted online. And you see a parent pushing a swing and there's no kid in the swing. And you see a parent holding a kid's hand, but there's no kid there. And all they're doing, the parent, is they have their phone and they're looking at their phone. They're going like this, pushing the swing. And then when they put the phone away, all of a sudden you see the kid. And yesterday I was walking through the park and there were 2 swings, 2 parents, each with their kid on the phone. There's nothing, I do it myself, okay? But it's, where we are in our lives that becomes, I personally have walked into poles a few times, sorry to say. Well, I was going to wait for a Litvak comment, of course, thank you. But you're right, is where we are physically and mentally. It says clearly, so what do these two psukim, what does this pasuk deal with? We get in our own way. Imagine a water faucet could speak. Speak. And it would say, you see all the water coming out from me? I did that. I am like so fantastic. What did you do? All you did is move the little lever. What did I do? Look at all the water I gave you. You moron. You didn't give us any water. You're just a conduit. Literally and figuratively, you're just a conduit for that water. When a person brings goodness into this world, when a person does something good in this world, when a person accomplishes something, that's fantastic. But again, it's only because Hashem gave you the ability to do that. And when you leave that Hashem out of the equation, you've lost it. And therefore, it leads to the statement of a person comes to believe, that's this pasuk, that you'll get haughty in your heart and say, Kochi, my power, and my courage and my strength, I did all this great stuff. This is all me. In parentheses, I once said at a Sheva Brachot that the Chatan has to be very careful and never say that because of his zchuyot, he deserved this Eshet Chayil. Don't say, it doesn't work like that. You know what? This Hashem's cheshbonot, and you deserve who you deserve, and Baruch Hashem, you get what you, hopefully, the best you can, the best possible for you. Okay, מצאו להם החסידים, טוב להיות אדם מענן נפשו לפעמים, למען השפיל יצר הגאווה, אשר איננו מתגבר אלא מתוך הריבוי. Before I translate the sentence, let's go back to the beginning of the book. Don't have to physically turn. Let's talk about it. One of the things that he talks about in the very beginning is that people think that to be a good person, you have to go into freezing cold mikvaot, and you have to fast for days on end, and you have to, you have to afflict yourself. That's how you become a better Jew and a better person. He says, absolutely, it's ridiculous. It makes no sense. Well, wait a minute. What does he just now say? So Hasidim, some pious people find that occasionally afflicting themselves in order to lower their yetzer of their haughtiness, it shouldn't overcome them. That's a good thing. Well, which is it? Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? So notice where he's telling us this in the book. We're almost at the end. Once you've gone through all these steps, even not perfectly, and you've understand what is Visutim, what is Zehirut, what is Nikiutim, what are all these things we talked about, and now you want to perfect your level of Anava, there's another thing you can do. And notice he says, on occasion. What does it mean? It does not mean they take a little reed and start banging their back or something like that, or lying out the sun, blade with no sunscreen or something like that in the desert over here. It's not what it means. It can be something that everyone can do. I'll give you an example. What is a ta'anit? Ta'anit is a fast. And there's a difference, by the way, between a ta'anit and a tzom. I still have yet to find an actual, I know there is, because there's ta'anit Esther and there's tzom Gedalia. It's not ta'anit Gedalia, it's not tzom Esther. There's a difference. One, I'm not going to get into it now because I don't remember the difference at the moment. But a ta'anit is a fast. So what is a fast? We're going to have one. We won't, hopefully, right? But if we do have to fast, it's very soon. Coming up next week. Next Thursday. Thank you. Mr. Good News here. Any other good stuff to tell us? So hopefully we won't have to be fasting. So we have Ta'anit Esther, Tzom Gedalia, the Ta'anit of Shivasar B'Tammuz, right? We have, it's Yom Kippur is referred to as a Tzom. Asar B'Tevet is, I think, Ta'anit is more used. I don't know. I have to look in this. You actually can find it in the keynote that are meant for the slichot that are meant for those days too. But there's a difference. I just don't remember what it was. So it means we don't eat, we don't drink. At the bare minimum, that's what it means. Other days, obviously, like Tisha B'Av, it's more extensive. Yom Kippur is more extensive. But there's a different type of ta'anit, and that's something that a person can do. You're sitting at the table, you're having a great meal, and there's still a little bit more food on your plate. You say, I'm really hungry still. I want a little bit more. I'll have someone else finish this. I'm not going to have it. That's actually a form of a ta'anit, a form of a fast. And that is in order to train oneself in a very maybe minimal, but a very small step of overcoming a yetzer. I want to finish that hamburger, or I want to finish that veggie burger. I want to finish all those flax seeds. Thanks. Can't wait to have every last one of them.
I don't know. I know this is the Google Translate says some is fast and Tanit is fasting, which obviously doesn't really.
No, it doesn't help. It's the word Tanit comes to lashon of inui, of affliction. It's the stopping, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. So, but Tanit Esther is not meant because it's the lowest of all the fast days, not meant to be an inui. It's not meant to be a cause of pain necessarily. But Yom Kippur is a Tanit because it's v'initemet nafshotechem. You're supposed to afflict your souls. So, okay, that's my homework. I'll try to look it up. And
in that fast when they fasted.
For them, there was sumo la shloshet yamim. Right. Al tochlu val tishtu shloshet yamim. Right. So a person has the right. Let me change that. A person does not have the right to harm themselves ever. You never had that right. It's not. It's we're in Salam Elokim. This body we have, the neshama, or the physical body we have, is on loan from God. Right. It's here for X amount of years. Then it's not, and we have no right to harm ourselves. On the other hand, we do have the right to do something that could cause us discomfort. There's no more pain. Go to the dentist, it's never going to be pain. This might cause a little pain. No, you might feel a little uncomfortable. You'll feel a pinch. Ow! And so you're allowed to do something that can cause you discomfort. And but for the purpose of growth, I stop myself a little short of finishing that meal because I'm really still a little bit hungry. Childbirth, I've never had pain in childbirth. Yeah, no, you're not causing yourself that pain, right? I mean, that's what's that? Refer. Cute. I'll get that from the doctor. Get you up. Yeah, exactly. Now I hear what you're saying. You're saying, but that's Hashem saying. Here you go. We could do a lot of years on childbirth, but we're not. Except till the banim. למען השפילה יצר הגבה אשר בעניין שמוח זיכרונם לברכה אין הרי נוהם מתוך קופה של תבן אלא מתוך קופה של בשר. A lion doesn't roar in front of a thing, a container full of straw, but he will roar in front of a container full of meat. What does that mean? What do you think that means? It's a nice little mashal, nice parable that
his senses
heightened.
The meat, but his senses say to him, that's not anything you can really eat.
I mean, the straw.
Yes.
Right.
Straw.
Exactly. I mean, but it's, I happen to like meat. I don't get a lot of it at home, but I happen to like meat. So if I walk by a restaurant that has a nice aroma, by the way, I don't know if you know this is one of the early days of restauranting, restaurateuring, whatever the word is, in the States. I forgot which restaurant was the first one to do it. They discovered that when they would pipe out into the public the scent from the kitchen, it drew customers in. There's a whole psychology in the way stores and restaurants and all that. Macy's is one of the first to put this idea of why is it that almost always that you have certain things that people want more than others that are in the store. They're all in the back. Why is a pharmacy in the back of the store? Because you have to go through the store to get to it. Along the way, you're going to pick up stuff. There's a whole psychology. So when we have things that are triggers that say, oh man, I really want that. So now I'm roaring, so to speak, using the mashal, but now I have to quench that a little bit. I have to overcome that a little bit. So the same thing is true when it comes to the kavod that someone's being given, that's just the praise that someone might be given, and especially if it's false praise, that some people feed on that, and that they need that as well. And many times those are the people who are very unsure of themselves. Among all these things that help to dissuade us and prevent us from really growing in the area of anava, of humility, is foolishness and the lack of true knowledge. What's foolishness? Doesn't mean telling jokes. I mean, I tell dad jokes, so okay, maybe it is. Fool. It means that your life, at the beginning of the book, he also talked about this, that a person who's just all the time, everything's a big joke to them. Everything. There's nothing that can ever be serious. It's a very big problem because life is a joke. If life is a joke, then you can tell me that I'm the best thing since sliced bread, and I'm going to believe it, and I'm just going to go with that. What does it mean? He's lacking true knowledge. What does that mean? It's ignorance. It's not knowing. Not only not knowing, it's not wanting to know. We are all ignorant of certain areas of halacha, of Torah. That's just the way it is. I mean, no one knows everything. There's always plenty of things that we don't know. That's one of the things someone asked me a question the other day. And it was one that was not a simple question. And I had to spend a decent amount of time. I went back and forth asking follow-up questions. And the person said, I'm sorry to have taken all your time. I said, this is the best kind of question to get, because it makes me learn something that I wasn't 100% knowledgeable in before. Now I get to learn something too. When you have an approach that you want to always gain and grow, so you may not know everything. You won't know everything, but at least you have the knowledge to want to know more knowledge. But when you just say everything's a joke and I know enough, like I say, I did my year in seminary, I did my year in yeshiva, that's I'm done. I graduated 8th grade, good to go. Where's my scalpel now? I had a little plastic stethoscope when I was a kid. I can be a doctor.
That's good.
Very. We see factually, where does haughtiness seem to seep in most? The bigger the fool, the bigger the haughtiness. I'm not sure which is the chicken and which is the egg in this case. What is one of the signs, a classic symptom of a person who's haughty? They're being poor in the area of Torah. I can make an argument against that, but in general, what he's saying is that a person who's not knowledgeable, a person who's an ignoramus by choice, especially, very often you'll find out that they tend to be a little bit more full of themselves as well. I'm not going to go there. Never mind. Okay. Siman de la yada klum shibuche. What is one of the signs that a person is really ignorant or doesn't know anything? Self-praise. Person says, I say, maybe I'll mention something to somebody. I don't do this. I'm saying maybe I'll say to somebody, by the way, just so you should know that on Shabbat we don't do X. What are you talking about? Of course I know that. Of course I know that. Matter of fact, I can teach you a thing or two. Okay. That is a sign that this person wants to just praise himself and say how good he is at something. That tends to be that they know a lot less. I also told, what was it about in speaking? When you don't really know what you're saying, talk louder and more forcefully. They think you really know what you're saying. I was once walking, for those of you who don't know, before I was the rabbi of a shul, I was in the business world for 17 years, and I was the director of purchasing for a couple of companies. And I was once walking my hands in my pocket. The guy came over to me. He's maybe I was a job for like 2 years. And he said, never, ever walk around with your hands in your pocket. Looks like you have nothing to do. And also, he said, if you really don't have something to do, walk fast. People think you're busy. I did a lot of fast walking. V'amru od, Istra belegina kish kish karya. There's an interesting mashal. A coin in an empty container makes a lot of noise. What does that mean? Take a jar, you put 1 shekel in it, a glass jar, go and move it around here, click, 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 right? Like it's almost making itself sound like, here I am, look at me, look how much I know. If you fill the jar up, then of course it's a different story. I'm going to need your help in understanding this myself. I've broken my head on this one. I don't really understand it, but I'll translate it. This is a midrash. They asked the non-fruit-bearing trees the following question: why is your voice heard? Amru, they said, if only that our voices would be heard and remembered. Now, the fact that they're non-fruit bearing trees, I guess it's symbolic of the fact that they don't have knowledge. The person with lack of knowledge. I don't understand that honestly. This, and I've looked into it. Maybe you'll do a little homework and help me out. And Moshe Rabbeinu, who we know is the choicest of all people, the greatest Nabi that ever lived and ever will, he was the most humble of all people. Other things that prevent a person from reaching a level of humility. When you surround yourself with people who just tell you you're such a good person, you're so great at what you do. You know, there are people. I worked for this guy when I was working at this company. I was director of purchasing in a company that manufactured locksmithing tools. And I worked in purchasing, as I said, and it was probably one of the best preparations to become a rabbi of a shul, for real. I dealt literally with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people over the years in sales and in other things that taught me a lot about human nature. And the owner of the company, Jerry, alav shalom, was a wonderful human being, not religious, but very respectful religion. He was what we call the traditional Jew. And we would sit in a meeting, and I had a healthy fear of him. He's a big guy and very boisterous voice. Liked him as a person, feared him as a boss. Eventually, he was not fear, but just I truly liked the guy very much and wanted to help to grow the business. And we would sit, one of the first meetings I remember sitting in his office with like the directors or whatever, sitting around the table and little old me. And he'd ask a question. He said, here's my idea. And then he'd say, and I heard it from him then many, many times over the years, I'm not surrounding myself with yes men and women, or men and women sitting around the table. I don't want to surround myself. If you don't agree with me, tell me. I want to hear it. It doesn't do me any good for everyone to say, yeah, good idea, boss. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help our business. When you surround yourself with people who you want to get, and you know they're going to just say, oh, good job, you're a great person, you're so smart, you're so beautiful, you're so this, then it's just going to get into your head. And that's who you become. You'll reflect back what you're hearing about yourself. And therefore, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be friends with somebody who gives you any praise. You want to hear praise. There's nothing wrong with stroking your ego once in a while. But at the same time, if that's what you're looking to do, to be surrounding yourself with people who are they like, I don't know the word in English, but it's like they just like false praise all the time. It makes you become that. Basically meaning that you're whatever little good you are, it magnifies. You're looking to magnify it, and then on top of that, they're like making up stuff that you don't even deserve the praise for. That becomes who you think you are. Relief. I mean, sometimes we do this, by the way. Not sometimes. Often we do this on purpose, but it's for good reason. Child comes home. My granddaughter today came to me. I would walk two of them to Gan. And the older one came to me, Sab, I have surprised you. She takes a piece of paper, she holds it up to her. She says, it's a surprise, you can't look. I said, well, how am I supposed to see it for holding it? So, well, it's a surprise. Okay, here. She gave me a little drawing that she had made. And it actually was good. I mean, it's not a Monet, but it was good for a 6-year-old child. Oh, this is beautiful. I'm going to put it in the fridge. Now, if one of you, no insult here, but one of you had drawn that, I'd say, oh, okay, you might want to see a therapist for some art therapy, right? So is it why do we say that to the child? Why do we say that? Is it because we're fake? No, we want to encourage. We want, even though on an adult level it's a nothing, but for the child it's a good step. It's one, and you want to encourage that. You don't want to go overboard, say like, let's see if we can get that to hang in the Louvre next time. What's the Louvre? So not only that, sometimes what they're praising you for is exactly the opposite of what you really have or who you really are. Wow, he has no anger. This guy's unbelievable. When in fact, that's all he is an angry individual. We're weak people. Human beings can be weak, and they're easily seduced into being told all these good things about themselves, and they'll believe it. More so even when he's being praised for something where he actually has a natural inclination towards that, or his natural inclination to believe things about himself. So therefore, when he hears these things about himself, here the words coming out of the person who believes in him, he will enter in like poison and venom. He'll fall into the trap, into the web of haughtiness, and he'll be broken. We have to be very careful of what we allow to enter and stay in our brain. What if someone does give us praise that's absolutely undeserved? It happens. Someone does. In this year, out the other year. And when they give you praise that is deserved, you're allowed to accept it, you're allowed to feel good about yourself. Remember, proud, not pride. And then move on. That cannot be the focus of who you are. If I get a nice little message from somebody, it makes you feel good. That's nice. I enjoy it. It's wonderful. Move on. Yoash. It was Yoash who was the king, one of the kings of Israel. When he was king, Yehoyada HaKohen was his Rav. And he always followed the words of his Rav. He was a good person. But when Yehoyada died, Ba'u Avadav, his servants, the servants of Yoash came. They came and began to give him false praise. And they magnified his greatness. Oh, wow, what a great king you are. Until they made it appear as if he was even a god, a deity. And the king actually bought it. We see this clearly. We see that many people in high position or of great abilities, whatever level they're at, they trip over this. And they get destroyed because of their confidants or their co-workers, or not even co-workers, the people who work for them, their constant praise. Okay, whoever has the literally means eyes in their head, whoever has a brain in their head, you have two kinds of people you're hiring. You're hiring someone, it could be literally hiring someone, or it's someone you're dealing with. So you're hiring someone to be in charge of your food in your house. You hire a butler. I'm sure we all have butlers, right? Or you're trying to acquire, quote unquote, a new friend. You have to be more careful about the friend you acquire than the employee you acquire. Why? Take a look. The food could only physically harm you. By the way, it can spiritually harm you, of course, if it's not kosher. But it can physically harm you only. But these friends, these fake friends, or people who you might get involved with, could destroy you spiritually, emotionally, monetarily, and in honor. Going down the right path, doing the right thing, that's what's going to serve me. What does that mean? Follow the words of Hashem. Don't get full of yourself. And when you receive the praise, again, accept it, move on. Lo yashev b'kerev beiti oseh rimiyah. Ve'in tov l'adam el shivakesh lo chaverim tmimim. So what kind of friends should you have? Friends that are tmimim, people who are good, pure people. Shia'iru einav v'mashu iver. That will open his eyes to things that he's blind. What does that mean? You should hope that you have friends, that if you do something that's not okay, or you don't know, that they would say in a nice way, you know what, you got to change something here, you got to fix something. And with their love, give them a little bit of, hey, maybe you should learn a little bit about this, and maybe we can sit down and talk about that. Matzilimo tomi korah. And these friends, therefore, will save him from all kinds of evil. What a person can't see because he doesn't see it as his own as a requirement. They will see, his friends will see. V'yavinu will understand. Yaziru, and they'll warn him, they'll tell him. V'nishmar, and he'll be able to be careful about those things. Salvation comes, again, that's the word I've told you many times I can't stand in English because of the connotation, lowercase s. Salvation comes from those who seek with a lot of counsel. Why? Why? Someone comes to you, Susie, who's has a problem in life, right? Why do they come to you? They come to you because they want it no different in a way than a person who has a broken arm goes to the doctor. It may be if it's not a physical ailment, it could be an emotional ailment, a spiritual ailment, something psychological. And there used to be this, and thank God it's a lot better now, tremendous stigma of mental health issues. For those of you who remember Dan Quayle, you remember the name? So if I'm not mistaken, Dan Quayle came out during the campaign. He was running for vice president. It came out that he had seen a therapist. I think it was him. And there was all kinds of articles written like, oh, this is the kind of person we want as vice president, a heartbeat away from the president. And the answer is yes. It's exactly the kind of person you want. Not them was endorsing Dan Quayle. Okay. But it meant there was an article I actually cut out of the Chicago Tribune at the time that was very much in positive, very in favor to get rid of the stigma of going to see mental health professionals. Now, I think, I don't know how many years you've been involved in mental health, but I know it's not more than a week. I know that. I'm sure you've seen changes in the approach, I hope, in the acceptability of people seeking help when they need it. And that's great. It's a great thing. And that's what this Pasuk in Mishlei is, exactly that. It says, Tushua berov yoetz. Where do you get saved? When you ask for help. Because if a person, God forbid, is literally or figuratively drowning, they're not going to be able to save themselves. They need someone to help them, to throw them that lifeline, again, figuratively or literally. And that's what that does. Okay, so that's the end of the topic of Anava, which leaves us with two topics in the book. One is Yirat HaChet and one is Kedusha. So I'm going to give you a little intro to Yirat HaChet. I'll tell you a story. For those who've learned or are learning Tanya, a lot of this is going to sound familiar. It's the same theme we dealt with in Tanya a number of chapters ago, of the topic of Yirat HaChet. But this story I didn't tell. When I was about, I'm going to guess 5, you'll see how brilliant I am. This is incredible. You're going to be very impressed with this brilliance. On a Shabbat, I decided to take a tweezers and stick it into an outlet in my parents' bedroom. Yeah. Brilliant. Did I tell you? Because it was America and because most houses had wall-to-wall carpeting with a rubber base underneath the carpeting, I didn't die. Well, I wouldn't have died from it anyways, but I could have got a good zap because I was grounded with the rubber underneath. Shorted out the entire house. I grew up and realized that I wouldn't do that today. It took me only one time to find out not to do that, especially when parents explained it to me. When my dad calmed down. But why don't you stick a tweezers into an outlet now? Why won't you? I mean, it's an obvious answer, but why?
You've learned somewhere.
You've learned somewhere that what?
That there are repercussions.
What are the repercussions? Good. So you could get a shock. God forbid, depending on the voltage, could almost kill you. The shock you could get from your parents could be absolutely. But we know that the reason now also, I hope you know that if a person, I don't ever take a bath, take a shower, but if you're sitting in a bath, you don't want to be also blow drying your hair, right? Not a good idea. You don't have to worry about that, okay? Because you never know. And then crank up old Sparky. Because you know that there are repercussions that sometimes are immediate and very painful and God forbid deadly. Is it because you respect the electricity? Not really. I mean, You have a healthy relationship with electricity. I hope you need to charge your phone and to be able to watch, and your air conditioning, of course. But doesn't mean you sit there and you respect the electricity. Like, wow, that my electricity is like the best electricity on earth. It's the coolest electricity. No, you know that you don't do something because there's repercussions from that.
Maybe it's a little fear.
It's a lot of fear. A lot of fear. Correct. I was waiting for the word. Thank you. So this topic, this chapter is called Yirat Hachet, fear of sin. And he's going to tell us, I'm just going to give you a little intro. He's going to tell us that there are two motivators in general, very general, two which break down into three categories to not do an Avera, to not do a sin. One is the simplest level. It's not the healthiest, it's definitely not the best, and it's not the way to teach a child. In general terms, is Hashem's going to punish you. Yeah, you do this, you're going to burn. You do this, and all those catastrophes are going to happen. I always like it when you have these people who think they're prophets nowadays. There's a disaster and say, oh, it's because some woman in Borough Park walked with a skirt that was too short. Oh, yeah, because you know what God's doing. Thank you very much. Can you tell me what lottery numbers to play tomorrow? Okay. So when you don't do an Aveira, it's not a bad thing. It's just not a great motivator. To not do an Aveira because you don't want Hashem to give you a smack, so to speak, lam haba or lam hazeh. That's one level. But the other level is I don't want to disappoint Hashem. I love Hashem. I want to do the right thing. One is ahava, one's yirah. The love of Hashem puts you in a position to be afraid to do a sin, not because you're afraid of the repercussion. You're afraid of the relationship being damaged, right? So there are things we all would like to be able to do in life sometimes, but we know that there are repercussions. I'm sure there have been times on a bus, in a store, we just wished it was legal just to smack someone across the face for something they said or did, or it's not legal. Sorry, Mark. It's not legal. I'll visit you in jail. Don't worry. I'll get with a little saw inside of it. It's a new law. They just passed it. Because there are repercussions. So why don't I smack that person? It's not fine. It's not fitting in my role, but just as a human being, as a Tzelem Okim. Okay, it's not that simple because that's part of it only. You're 100% right. It's not fitting as a role of a Tzelem Elokim, but it's beyond that because I don't do it. Most people won't do it because they don't want to end up in jail. Now, what you're saying is on the higher level, and that's correct. That's what I'm talking about now. On the base level, we don't do certain things because we know there are repercussions that we really want to do something, but I'm afraid of the repercussions. It's assault and battery. That's correct. Now, if I do that, beyond the repercussions, I've also disappointed people. I've hurt people. I've caused all kinds of ripple effects. But I also don't want to. Correct. Right. So that's also in Tanya. What do you do in certain parts of your spirit, your nefesh, your neshama, take over your nefesh bahamit, kicks in, especially we talked about anger in this book. We talk about it in Tanya, about what that does to your neshama, correct? How it affects you spiritually. All these things are right. So what do you think is a better level of yirat hachet? Not doing a chet because an avera because you don't want to get punished, or you don't want to do it because I love Hashem and I don't want to do the wrong thing, right? So obviously it's the second one, but both work. Question is, which is a better motivator? Which is more true to building a relationship? So I'll leave you with that question. We'll leave that up for next week, Bezrat Hashem. What exactly is Yirat Hachet? Now, what he's going to explain to us what it is, and Kedar Kol Kodesh, how we can acquire like that, and then we're going to talk about Kedusha. My expectation, Bezrat Hashem, is that before the end of the summer, we'll finish Mesilat Yesharim, and Ron and I talked about the possibility last year, but maybe this year we'll see if it works. Maybe a little field trip when we're done to learn the end of Mesilat Yesharim near the kever of the Ramchal himself, Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. So we'll see if we could do that. Tveria, it's up north. Yeah. Yes. So we'll maybe take a day trip. We'll see if we could do that. Yes. Yeah, Mark has already